In order to fund my nomadic life, I took requests from a corporation that deals with things out of the norm. They offered a job that paid a small amount to stay in a hotel room for a night or two to see if anything strange happened. They would cover hotel costs and room service if I ordered any. On the upside, I would have a bed for a night, a decent meal, and access to a shower. One of the only things I missed about not having a real home was being unable to bathe whenever I wanted. Some people have suggested I buy an RV. At the start of my journey, I got one secondhand. Through some very strange turn of events, it exploded. The second and third one did not fare as well as the first. I gave up buying them, knowing they would not last in my care. It felt like I was adopting shelter cats only to let them outside for coyotes or other animals to eat them. No, I could only seem to live out of my car and random rooms I found along the way. My theory was that an RV or a camper could be a home. I could never see my car as a real home, so it was spared from my odd curse that forced me to travel. I accepted the offer of the room and drove to the location. The hotel was connected to a very large casino and appeared to be better than most of the places I've stayed at recently. I waited in line and had some issues checking in. The room had already been paid for and was in my name, but the man behind the desk didn't believe I was the Adelaide that should be staying in the room until I showed him a few set of IDs. "Do your parents know that Adelaide is a girl's name?" he asked, trying to defend why he refused to believe a man of my age had that as a first name. "I'll call them and ask," I said, making a show of taking out my phone and then pausing. "Oh, wait. They're dead." That normally shut people up and ended the conversation. I rarely brought out the dead parents line and only used it if the person was rude to start with. I remained pleasant, accepting my card key, and wished the suddenly meek desk clerk a good night. I found my room on the 4th floor, wondering if it might be worth it going to the casino, but I didn't have that much disposable cash and figured the chance of winning anything wasn't worth the trip back downstairs. The room looked fine, a bit larger than I expected. It had a sitting area, and the bed separated by a wall, the bathroom large with a shower and a hot tub. Or are they called something else if they were indoors? Either way, I hadn't been able to afford something like this on my own dime for a long while. The tub looked so tempting, but I'd been sent here to investigate anything strange going on. The tub would have to wait until I knew it was safe to let my guard down. I'd been told very little about the job. A few people had stayed in this room and experienced odd sounds at night. Some woke up with swollen bites they suspected to come from spiders or a different type of insect. After each report, the room got cleaned top to bottom, with no signs of any creepy crawly creatures lurking in the corners of the room. I was shocked something this minor even got on the corporation's radar. Maybe they found something that hinted at a more supernatural danger, besides people being nipped at in bed. I checked over the entire room a few times to find nothing of note. Not even dust bunnies under the bed. The long drive had started to get to me. If something appeared ready to eat my legs, I would deal with it when it happened. I wanted to sleep, but first needed to get cleaned up a little. I often went a few days between shaving and hated how scruffy my face started to look. My hair also got pretty long. I spent some time getting my face back in order. I tempted fate to take a quick shower, hoping nothing was inside that room that my human eyes couldn't see. I didn't want some sort of ghost or monster seeing me in such a vulnerable state. I didn't even order food that night. I went right to bed just as the sun started to set. I needed the rest, and it felt nice to be in a bed that wasn't bumpy or worn down by countless other people sleeping on it. I only had this room for 2 nights. Might as well enjoy it. I've never been a heavy sleeper. Any noise in the night tends to wake me up. Anything nibbling on my leg was bound to make me jump awake and toss the sheets off trying to find the source of the pain. And I did just that. My leg stinging from where something crawled over to take a little taste. I left the bedside lamp on in case something like that happened. In the low light, I noticed a black shape moving quickly off the bed. I jumped up and flicked on the other lights, then pulled the rest of the sheets off the bed, trying to find anything else hiding in them. I then got on the floor to look under the bed to try and find whatever small thing ran off when I woke up. I thought my mind might have been playing tricks on me, but I checked my leg to find a small red marker, showing that wasn't the case. I paused searching when a noise came from the bathroom, one so faint I didn't think I heard it. I even needed to pause breathing to hear better. I didn't dare go near the other room, or even move a muscle. From under the closed door came a black shape. It quickly ran across the carpet, and close enough for me to identify it. I slowly let out the air from my lungs, while watching a black millipede run under the bed and into the darkness. The shiny body disappearing the moment another came from under the door. More started to join the first, and I decided it was a good time to start moving. I started off quickly, but the bugs swarmed faster, each step an awkward dance, trying not to crush the insects in my mad dash to the door. I got as far as the open doorway and made the mistake of glancing over my shoulder. In a flash, a much larger shape came from the dark bathroom, bursting the door open, cracking the wood. It crawled along the ceiling, long body swiftly trailing behind. I got cut off when the creature went above my head and stuck fast against the door, my only way out. I turned on my heel towards the sitting area. I thought I may have a chance jumping out the window. Being splattered against the pavement sounded better than being eaten in that moment. A hand caught my shirt. I knew I wouldn't be making it through the night alive, even before my body got tossed on the stiff couch, so hard it broke the small wooden legs. With my head swimming in pain, I had a second before the nightmare set in. The creature hovered over me, and in an instant, wrapped a long black body around my own in a crushing squeeze so tight my right arm snapped. I muffled a scream of pain, trying to stay focused to see what suddenly attacked. The monster's bottom half was identical to the black millipedes that started to fill the room, only much, much larger, the body thicker than my own, and so many feet long. With it wrapped around myself and constantly moving, it was impossible to guess just how long this thing was. The upper half looked like a normal human's, besides the pitch black arms. Each finger covered in a hard jointed shell and tipped with claws. A pile of black tangled hair blocked the face of the monster. It shook some hair aside, showing half of the face underneath. Fighting through the pain, I glanced at the face with the hinged jaw filled with teeth, and then to the torso with skin so tight it showed ribs. I would be this monster's first meal in a while. The body kept moving around my own, the legs never stopping. The tightness let up, and my arm hurt slightly less. I still didn't have any chance of escaping, my mind grasping on anything to try and get free. The smaller millipedes made their way over to crawl across my face, tickling a little. I honestly wasn't scared of bugs. If I didn't have a broken arm or a monster staring at me like a 4-course meal, I would have found the millipedes cute. But I was seconds away from being eaten, and my brain went blank from fear. I only wondered why I was still alive.
Who sent you? What were you looking for?
The creature hissed, in a voice that almost sounded too young for his body. Then again, monsters lived for thousands of years. He may have an adult body and still be a child age-wise. That explained why he didn't just eat me already. If I told him, he had no more use for me. If I didn't, I risked getting eaten anyway. A no-win situation, and I figured the truth couldn't hurt. A corporation that deals with supernatural things asked me to take a look at this room, I said, and got interrupted.
An agent?
He growled. The body got tighter, and I couldn't breathe for a few seconds. I shook my head, knocking some of the crawling millipedes off. He released his grip so I could explain. Not an agent, just hired help, I gasped. I started to feel dizzy. The pain in my arm turned my stomach, and I couldn't expand my chest to get enough air. At least the constant moving legs weren't unpleasant. I should be freaked out by being touched by huge bug legs, but I didn't mind them. They were almost cute in a way. Where did you even come from anyway? I didn't see any traces of magic when I arrived, I asked, thinking if I kept talking I may buy some time.
The space between worlds is weak in this room. I found it. This hunting spot is mine. If I eat you, then there won't be anyone to report back about what you have found here.
I've heard a little bit about the whole other worlds thing. I wasn't certain of how many there were out there. The things that lurked in the night lived in those other worlds and could cross into ours by using magic. The monsters that were more removed from reason and logic lived in further worlds. Thankfully, all of the worlds where the monsters lived that could rip apart our small planet cost too much energy to travel between, or have been sealed away in order for them to never gain access to our small existence. Creatures like the millipede hybrid were fairly common and lived in a world so close they required little to no magic to travel over. That explained why I had been called over to look at the room. The corporation must have known how close the two worlds lined up here. Otherwise, they wouldn't have cared about a few reports of bug bites. I went over all of that in my head to try and ignore the hybrid getting ready to tear my body apart. The monster straightened up to use both hands to push back the tangled mess of hair from his face, his mouth getting even longer, if that was possible, and eyes turning jet black. His face shifted from an almost normal one to a monstrous thing from anyone's nightmares. He let out a hiss behind sharp teeth, extending past his mouth. Those eyes looked down, expecting a reaction he didn't get.
Oh? Too scared to scream, human? Is this face of mine too much for your mind to handle?
He mocked. Since I started traveling, I've seen some pretty messed up things. Even the slight memories of those things made my heart want to stop. And after coming across all sorts of monsters and supernatural creatures, I found out something I never wanted to. That you could be afraid and deeply in love at the same time. My body screamed to run, but my mind made my heart beat from seeing the sharp teeth and dark eyes. The tips of the ever-moving legs brushed against my face, and I didn't flinch from them. Was this monster terrifying and going to eat me? Yes. Was he downright cute in a little brother sort of way? Regretfully, also yes. I didn't feel attracted to him in a romantic sense after seeing his full face. Just saw him like a good neighborhood kid that needed to be taken care of and protected. I hated the idea of those teeth sinking into my flesh, but accepted it was going to happen. After seeing how starved his body looked, I almost felt glad he finally got something to eat. You're actually kind of cute, I admitted. That wasn't the right answer. It's never the right answer around monsters. They didn't know how to deal with humans not running and screaming from them. When a person didn't act scared, it tended to confuse them, making the creatures lash out. Those teeth came down and my blood sprayed over the creature's face. I thrashed, trying to get away from the pain. I hated dying. Just because I woke up afterwards didn't mean I wanted to go through the pain and fear. Being eaten sucked. I don't think words have been invented that could fully explain just how painful that experience feels. At least he was kind enough to go for the throat, to make me bleed out pretty fast. I fell into a cold darkness, waiting for sunrise. That black void always there after I died. I didn't know if this was what everyone went through after death, and sincerely prayed it wasn't. I didn't feel anything but a sheer cold, my body unmovable, and I doubted it was still there. I only remained in that dark space for a few hours, and yet, every time, it felt like centuries. A crack of light came to my eyes, pulling me out of the dark and back to where I died. I gasped, coughing, and rolled off the stiff couch. Some millipedes nearly were crushed under my body. I carefully moved around them, trying not to kill the poor things. No matter how hard I tried, one or two always stayed crawling somewhere on me, so I let them instead of trying to win a losing battle of getting them all off. The room was covered in them, with only enough space on the floor for careful steps. The noise of them crawling around made my nerves tense, but overall, I wasn't too scared of the small army. I could have gotten to the door in time and escape. I considered it. My job was done. I just needed to confirm something supernatural went on or not, and I got a very clear answer. I took a step every few seconds. I needed to gently push away some millipedes with my foot to make some progress across the room. I stopped by the bedroom doorway, looking inside and finding a large shape curled up in a ball in the bed. Pretty bold of him to stay in this room after eating someone the corporation sent. I didn't want to consider that he just got tired after the first good meal in ages and needed to rest afterwards. In his sleep, he sensed someone else in the room. Before I knew the creature was awake, he sprang up, long body uncurling, and he skittered up the wall to press into a corner near the ceiling. His eyes wide and confused under his mess of hair, looking down on the person he killed a few hours ago.
"Are you that man's twin?"
he asked slowly, trying to understand who I was and how I got there. No, I can die and come back," I answered, and we went into a stalemate. Since encountering creatures and magic, I found out one truth that not even magic went against. Nothing came back from the dead. As far as anyone knew, there was no power in this world, or any other, that could do what happened every time I died.
"A twin with bad jokes then,"
the monster concluded, not moving from his spot. "Sure, whatever. Can you come down so we can talk?" I offered, trying to get him to calm down.
"If I eat you, are more twins going to arrive? Some of my siblings did not eat enough last night, and I would greatly like to see just how many meals we can get out of you."
His dark eyes behind tangled hair actually made him scary for a few moments. I didn't want to be eaten again, and nearly made a run for it thinking about that outcome. I needed to stay though, at least for a little while. I steadied myself, hating what I needed to do. "You can eat me after we talk, alright? This is important, but you should have a bath first. Your hair looks terrible. Seriously, when was the last time you washed it?" I'd met creatures similar to him before. They looked as monstrous as they should, considering their form, but also took great care of their hair. It was a shame his long black hair hung in a knotted mess. His hand went to a long strand for a moment, considering what I asked.
"I do not know how to get water in this place,"
he admitted. "Come into the bathroom. I'll show you." To my surprise, he slowly went down the wall and across the floor to follow me. I debated on the shower or the tub. I didn't want to have to talk over the noise of the shower, and the tub could fit at least most of his long insect body. I turned on the tap to start filling it with hot water, and then looked for some shampoo. I found a small bottle, but not enough for his hair. I sat thinking with the monster in the same room, his eyes on my back, wanting to attack at any second. He'd gotten a taste of human. With one sitting in the same room utterly defenseless, it was tempting to have another meal. "I need to go to the store downstairs to buy some stuff. I can bring back some snacks too. Is there anything you like?" I offered, and then the creature was on top of me in a second. His heavy body pressed down, and face twisted in a snarl. My pulse jumped, making me almost scream at suddenly being face to face with this monster.
"Do you think I'm stupid enough to fall for that?"
he hissed, cheeks turning red at the insult. "I can take a millipede with me. You'll be able to find me again if I had one. Right?" I said, thinking back to some vague information I heard about a creature very similar to this one. With there being so many different monsters, all with their own rules and powers, most of the time, trying to understand their abilities was guesswork based on what other creatures you've come across. Guessing can be a dangerous thing, and I found most people who deal with monsters specialize in one type, if possible.
"Yes, I suppose. They do appear to be insects from your world, but are much stronger. You should not be able to harm one, but if you do, I'll find you. And I won't be as kind as I was last night. I'll tear open a small hole and let my siblings eat you from the inside."
That was a terrifying idea. I raised my hands, sweat starting on my forehead from stress making me look harmless. The creature believed I wasn't trying to make an attempt to flee. I knew I would be eaten again. It was just a matter of when it happened. I needed to play it safe, to put the pain off for as long as possible. With a wiggling insect tucked in my pockets, I left the room. I didn't spend that much time outside, just long enough to buy some shampoo and food from the little store next to the casino, then headed back to the room. If I wanted, I could have called in a few connections to come over and save my life. But I went back inside, the millipedes hiding for a few seconds when a human entered, then crawled out comfortable I was the person they nibbled on the night before. I went into the bathroom to find the monster in the tub and water overflowing. His long body always moving, but upper half staying in the water. The water spilled over into the drain set in the tiled floor, so I didn't turn the tap off. I took off my socks and let my pants get soaked when I sat next to the tub. "Here, try this. It's sweet," I told him, holding out a honey bun I bought downstairs. He looked at me suspiciously. Monsters don't use money, but rather exchange time, information, and favors. Getting something for free was nearly unheard of for them. I needed to tell him I was human, and therefore the whole giving him food for nothing was a gesture, a part of my culture. He accepted the idea and took the treat after I unwrapped it for him. "What's your name?" I asked, watching the monster shove the pastry in his mouth. Yeah, he was cute. I didn't think too many people would share that opinion, though.
Malty,
he answered, hesitating to say his full name for a moment. I couldn't help myself. My face lit up hearing such a cute name. His answer flared up, long body thrashing in the water, causing it to splash over, covering the bathroom for a moment. The millipedes stayed out of the bathroom, but I saw them wriggling around the doorway, threatening to come inside to eat the person who upset their brother.
It means something important in my language,
he hissed, ready for a fight. Mine's Adelaide. I've had a rough time because it's a girl's name, and people think guys shouldn't have cute names, I explained, fully understanding his reaction. He calmed down, and the slight hissing coming from the massive insects in the other room quieted. Malty then let me get to washing his hair after we bonded over names. I found a comb and got to work, trying to untangle the mess it became while rinsing the long black hair with shampoo. This would take hours, but at least he wasn't tearing my body apart. Your English is pretty good. Did someone teach it to you? I asked as I worked.
My mother was human. I lived with her for a few years.
I wasn't expecting him to be a half-breed. I've seen a monster identical to him before, and he was a full-blooded monster. Half-breeds are difficult to spot due to their body adjusting to their environment. If he grew up in the other world, he would have become a creature exactly the same as full breeds. If he grew up here alongside humans, he might have shifted to having regular human legs without any way of getting his other form back. I assumed his mother died, or else she might have raised him. The insects in the other room were most likely full-blooded creatures from a different mother.
Are you really the same person I ate last night? Not a twin?
Malty asked after a while of silence between us. I didn't know how I wanted to answer his question. If I said yes, he may see me as an endless food supply. I would be powerless if he took me to the other world to keep himself and his family fed until he died, or until another monster took his food away. I also didn't want to say yes to give him hope that there were ways of bringing back the dead. For some reason, I trusted him not to steal me away, at least not right then. Yeah, I don't know how or why I come back. I just do, I explained, unsure if he accepted the answer. For him, unanswered questions were normal. Sometimes things just didn't make sense, no matter how much one wanted them to. Supernatural creatures understood that. He nodded, and then hissed when I pulled out a bad nut. At least we were getting somewhere with his hair. You got lucky. If I was an agent or someone else, they would have fought back. You really shouldn't be hunting here. You should contact the corporation and... He sprang up again, his face monstrous and his rage clear. His body grew even larger and took up most of the space, each leg tapping hard against the tiles.
I shall not side with the ones who took away my family for no reason,
the creature shouted, causing the mirrors on the far side of the room to shake. So that's what happened. his mother dead, his father killed by agents. If monsters hunted in the wrong spots or hurt a human, they became targets to be taken down by a company that dealt with protecting humans from creatures. Or the hunters would find them and kill them regardless if they were dangerous or not. Monty was just an older brother trying to protect his younger siblings after their parents died. His thin human half showed he let the others eat before him. I wondered just how much of my body he devoured last night, or if he left it for his siblings. They'll kill you if you stay here. You can request an approved hunting spot. The forests are always fair game. Why don't you find one to live in? You can eat injured and lost hikers or any animals you come across, I offered. Once again, he calmed down, his body returning to the other smaller shape and sinking down into the overfull tub. Monty assumed I wasn't scared of his other form and didn't want to waste the energy to stay puffed up. I was scared of him, terrified, but I had enough practice to not let it show in my voice. My hands shook slightly when I got back to trying to tame his wild hair.
I can't go in any forests. My siblings would be eaten by something. Too many threats in the trees. I need to protect them,
he said with a long, tired sigh. I understand how you feel, but isn't that a bit unfair? How come you can hunt and kill others, but they can't do the same with you? I always thought your kind never had any issues with that sort of thing, I mentioned. He glared up and then sank down into the water to blow angry bubbles. I was right, and he knew it. Didn't change how he felt, though. I let him pout and thought of my few connections. He might not like the suggestion, but he should take it. Monster that could rip me apart or not, I didn't want to see him killed for just being born a certain kind of creature. Our hands became forced, and our conversation ended before I knew it would be. Monty flared up again, face twisted in fear but also trying to make himself appear menacing. I stood up after hearing a knock at the front door. If it was just room service, the monster would not have reacted in the way he did. I whispered to him to calm down, and I would handle it. He stayed on the ceiling, body moving and twisting. His siblings already disappeared to somewhere, or found a spot to hide in. I walked over to the door, clothing soaked from washing a monster's hair. On the other side of the door stood someone who I normally was glad to see. Right now, I really didn't want him here. He was an agent I worked with a few times, and we had an odd working relationship. 340, what are you doing here? I haven't submitted a report, I asked him, trying to sound natural. He was a part of a family that had so many brothers, they gave up on names and used numbers instead. He looked the way you would think a secret government agent would. Tall, bold shoulders, and black, neatly styled hair. Sunglasses covered his eyes, and I couldn't read his stern expression. Most of his brothers looked pretty much the same, but he had a long scar going down his face, starting at his forehead and ending a bit under his chin. It ran through his lips, exposing a small hint of teeth. I knew he hated that scar, but of course, due to my weird tastes, it made him look extremely handsome. You weren't picking up your phone. I was nearby for a job and came by. Who else is in this room with you? He asked, tone even and stern. Oh crap, I didn't even check my phone when I woke up. 340 was one of the rare people who knew I came back after dying. He didn't like it and wanted me to avoid such things as often as possible. He had good senses and knew a monster was in my room. If he found out Monty killed me, then he would have to deem it dangerous, and 340 needed to arrest him in the very least. I could feel the millipede creature waiting to attack from inside the room. This had the chance of turning very ugly, very fast. I doubted a half-starved creature against an agent would end in a weaker creature's favor. I needed to do something or else one of them were going to be killed. Monty, he's a millipede and a good boy. He's protecting all his younger siblings and came through here looking for food. He doesn't know who to contact about getting an approved hunting spot through the corporation, I said quickly. I knew of 340's soft spot for his hundreds of younger brothers. He may look stern, but he was a really big softie for them. Malty let out a noise of betrayal, and I ducked inside the room to grab his hand to drag him into 340's view. This was going to happen either way, and I needed to control how the conversation went. "Did he attack you?" 340 asked, his voice low and clearly threatening us not to lie to him. "No," I easily lied. The millipede hybrid looked between us, confused on why I would say such a thing. When the agent took a step closer, Malty ducked behind me, making me want to hug the poor thing. There is a long wait on hunting spots. I assume he has not gone to the woods and fear him or his siblings are going to be hunted as well by animals or creatures, 340 said, and my heart dropped. Now what? This creature would not last long without being able to find a way to get a reliable source of food. 340 saw how I looked down at Malty and saw we were both still dripping water. The agent was smart, and he knew me. He put things together and assumed I'd been trying to take care of a monster who easily could have overpowered me. I was dumb like that. His siblings are other millipedes, correct? And they can travel between weaker parts of the world. They can be useful for the corporation. If they apply, they may be hired in order to deliver messages to agents on the field in a more discreet manner than using mailmen or spells. They'll also not draw much attention, so won't be in much, if any, danger on those job requests. I've heard that the offices always need workers. If he can read and write, they'll hire him, 340 offered. I totally forgot that the corporation always lacked manpower. Hell, that was why I was the one looking into odd reports and not an agent. They didn't have agents to spare on something so minor. Of course they would hire Malty and his siblings. They paid pretty well too, meaning they wouldn't need to worry about food for a very long time. Well, I whispered down to the boy, hoping he agreed to the job. I didn't blame him if he wanted to refuse. These were the people who killed his father. Then again, supernatural creatures were normally pretty understanding when it came to that sort of thing. If the murder was justified, they didn't hold a grudge, no matter how much they loved the person that had been killed. A long pause came between us as we waited for an answer.
If my siblings are fed, it's fine. We can work.
The creature agreed, but still looked scared of the agent in the doorway. With that settled, we arranged to have Malty and the others picked up. The millipede creature stayed behind long enough to privately speak with me, as his other siblings were herded into a magic circle to transport them somewhere safe and away from humans.
If you told them I attacked you, I would be dead by now. I owe you,
Malty said, wary of the agents nearby, even though he would need to work with them soon. Don't worry about it. It's just what I do. The boy looked up at me, trying to figure out what to do. Creatures worked on a favor-based system. He couldn't just not repay the fact I saved his life, but he didn't need to repay the favor right away. He decided to figure out something at a later date, but I doubt whatever he thought of would ever be enough in his eyes. I said goodbye to him and his little siblings. I was glad he had a future, but also glad he didn't kill me a second time. That would have sucked and could have made it harder to lie for him. With that sorted, I was left with 340 after the others had taken the millipedes away. I knew 340 was well aware of my lie and started to feel nervous with his eyes hidden behind those dark sunglasses, staring me down. We'll pay for the room for another night for you. I think you'll get a little bonus after taking care of this in a peaceful manner. But you need to stop doing things like this. If something happens, it's not your job to take care of it. Call in an agent, he said, sounding a little bit heated at the end. I nodded, knowing he was right. I should have called in a professional to handle it. But would they have seen the boy as a small, half-starved creature, or a dangerous monster that needed to be put down? I felt a small touch on my arm and looked up to see the agent got closer. Only one of his ginger tips touched my arms, but that was enough. He was a bit taller than myself, and he lowered his voice in a way he very rarely did. Check your phone next time. I got worried. I nodded again, feeling very tempted to take his hand. He backed away, returning to his normal, stoic agent image. He knew we couldn't have a relationship, besides seeing each other through work because of my own limitations, but we were able to have brief moments like this. His phone rang, showing he was overdue for another job. Without too much else to say, he left, going back to work. I stayed at the hotel for another night, but found it hard to sleep. The room sounded too silent. I tossed and turned, and then gave up to spend some time in the casino for the rest of the night. My funds going up and down for hours, and in the end, I cashed out with enough winnings to buy a new lighter. I smoked on and off, and that day felt like a smoking day. I left the hotel behind, thinking there was a good chance I'd never see it again. I got lucky this time. I only died once, and found a monster a good place to be. The next time, I wouldn't be as lucky. In this world, things lurked in each dark corner. Not all of them were caring older brothers that wanted to protect his family. Others were pretty nasty, and I risked coming across them next. Still, I picked a random direction to drive in, unaware of what I may come across in the future.